27 years old, sitting in a cramped office that smelled of burnt coffee and desperation. Maya Reeves signed the bankruptcy paperwork with a hand that wouldn't stop shaking. The Chapter 7 filing would wipe out $87,000 in debt from her failed small business. A boutique bakery in Brooklyn that had lasted exactly 11 months, before the landlord doubled the rent, and the commercial oven died in the same week. It would also destroy her credit for the next decade, make it nearly impossible to rent an apartment, and mark her publicly as a failure. Her mother had predicted this exact outcome 2 years ago when Maya quit her stable accounting job to chase what her mother called a fantasy. Now, walking out of the bankruptcy attorney's office into the gray March drizzle, Maya had $340 in her checking account, no job, and no plan beyond the air mattress she was sleeping on in her friend's living room. The certified letter arrived 3 days later, forwarded from her old bakery address. It was from the estate attorneys of Holloway and March, informing her that her maternal grandmother, Iris Delacroix, had passed away at 86 in a nursing home in Vermont. Maya felt a sharp pang of guilt mixed with grief. She hadn't visited her grandmother in over 2 years, too consumed with trying to save her dying business, too ashamed to face the woman who had helped pay for her culinary school tuition. The letter stated that Maya was named in the will. Her presence was required at the reading in 5 days. A small and desperate flutter of hope sparked in Maya's chest. Her grandmother had lived modestly, but maybe, just maybe, there was a small savings account, a few $1,000s that could help Maya get back on her feet. The estate office was located in a wealthy suburb of Hartford, the kind of place where the trees were perfectly manicured, and the cars in the parking lot all cost more than Maya had earned in her entire life. She arrived wearing the only professional outfit she still owned, a black dress she had worn to her bakery's opening party, now slightly too loose because she'd been living on ramen and free samples from grocery stores. Sitting in the wood-paneled conference room were 4 other people: her aunt Lorraine, her mother's older sister, wearing a cream-colored suit and a string of pearls that caught the light; Lorraine's husband, Roger, scrolling through his phone with the bored expression of a man used to wasting time in legal offices; Maya's cousin Simone, Lorraine's daughter, a real estate agent who drove a white Mercedes and never let anyone forget it; and at the head of the table, the estate attorney, a dignified older woman named Patricia Holloway. Attorney Holloway adjusted her reading glasses and opened a leather folder. "Thank you all for coming. I will now read the last will and testament of Iris Marie Delacroix. To my daughter Lorraine Ashford." She paused. Iris left her jewelry collection, primarily costume pieces, but including a few items of sentimental value. Lorraine smiled tightly, clearly hoping for more. To my granddaughter Simone Ashford, Iris left her china set and dining furniture. Simone nodded, looking mildly disappointed. And finally, Maya's heart began to race. To my granddaughter Maya Reeves, the room seemed to hold its breath. Iris left her real property located at 1447 Blackwell Road, including the structure and all contents therein. The room went silent, completely, utterly silent. Then Lorraine let out a short, sharp laugh that sounded like a bark. Blackwell Road? That falling down shack in the middle of nowhere? And Roger looked up from his phone for the first time, grinning. "Oh, this is perfect. Maya gets the dump." Simone covered her mouth, but her eyes were sparkling with barely suppressed laughter. "Aunt Maya, do you even know what that place is? It's literally a condemned cottage in the woods. Grandma hasn't lived there in 30 years. The roof is caved in. There's no plumbing. The county tried to demolish it twice, but Grandma kept paying the fines to keep it standing." She leaned forward, her voice dripping with mockery. "I drove past it last year. It's a tear down." Maya felt her face burning. Attorney Holloway, is that true? Is the property unlivable? Holloway glanced at a separate document. The property taxes are current, paid from your grandmother's estate account. However, she paused. The structure has been flagged by the county as unsafe for habitation. Any restoration would require significant investment. Lorraine leaned back in her chair, her voice dripping with false sympathy. Sweetheart, you just filed for bankruptcy. You can't afford to demolish a building, let alone fix one. She smiled, that calculating smile Maya knew too well. If you want, Roger and I could take it off your hands. We'll pay the back fees and have it cleared. You won't have to deal with the headache. Maya looked at her aunt, the woman who had spent Maya's entire childhood criticizing every choice she made, and saw the calculation in her eyes. Why do you want it? If it's worthless. Lorraine's smile faltered, just slightly. We're just trying to help family, dear. Maya looked down at the paperwork in front of her. At the address typed in clean black letters, she thought about her grandmother. A woman who had lived through the Depression, who had taught Maya to bake bread from scratch in a kitchen that always smelled like vanilla and cinnamon. Iris Delacroix had been a lot of things, but she had never been careless. If she left Maya that property, there was a reason. Maya's voice came out quiet, but steady. I'll take it. Simone actually laughed out loud. You're going to take a building with no roof? Oh, where are you going to live, Maya? In a tent? Ah, Roger shook his head, standing up. Good luck with that disaster. You'll be begging us to take it in 6 months. They left. Still laughing, Maya sat alone in the conference room holding the deed and a single iron key that Attorney Holloway handed her. Your grandmother left you this as well. Holloway's expression was unreadable. She also left instructions that I was to give you this envelope privately. She slid a sealed envelope across the table. It was addressed in shaky handwriting for Maya. Open when you arrive. Maya took the envelope, her hands trembling. She had no car, no money for a hotel. But she had an address and a key to a place her entire family thought was worthless. That night, she borrowed her friend's car, threw a sleeping bag and a flashlight into the back seat, and started driving north. The drive to Blackwell Road took 3 hours through winding rural highways that gave way to narrow dirt roads barely wide enough for one vehicle. The GPS lost signal 20 miles outside the nearest town. Forcing Maya to navigate by a hand-drawn map Attorney Holloway had provided, the trees grew denser, the sky darker when she finally turned onto Blackwell Road. The path was overgrown with weeds and low-hanging branches that scraped the car's roof. At the end of the road, hidden behind a wall of wild hedges, sat the cottage. It was small, much smaller than Maya had imagined. A single-story structure built from dark stone and weathered wood. The roof was partially collapsed on the left side. Just as Simone had said, the windows were boarded up. Thick vines covered the front wall. It looked abandoned, haunted, and completely unsalvageable. Maya killed the engine and sat there in the silence, staring. This was her inheritance, this wreck, this joke. She thought about Lorraine's laughter, Simone's smirk, and felt tears of frustration burning her eyes. Then she looked down at the envelope in her lap. She tore it open. Inside was a single piece of paper folded carefully. Her grandmother's handwriting, shaky but legible. My dearest Maya, if you are reading this, you are standing in front of what everyone believes is a ruin. Let them believe it. I have kept this secret for 30 years because I knew the vultures would circle the moment I was gone. Do not trust Lorraine. Do not trust Roger. They see only money. You see beauty in broken things. You always have. Go inside. Go to the back room, the one with the stone fireplace. On the right side of the hearth, there is a loose stone at knee height. Pull it. Behind that wall is the truth I protected my entire life. It is yours now. Use it wisely. Build something they said you couldn't. Love, Grandma Iris. Maya stared at the letter, her heart pounding. She grabbed her flashlight, stepped out into the cold night air, and walked toward the front door. The front door was swollen from years of moisture and required Maya's full body weight thrown against it before the wood gave way with a splintering crack. The smell that rushed out was overwhelming: mildew-rotting fabric, damp earth, and beneath it all, something faintly floral, like dried lavender that had been sitting untouched for decades. Maya clicked on her flashlight. The beam cut through darkness so thick it felt almost solid. The interior was worse than the exterior suggested. The ceiling had partially collapsed in the front room, exposing broken beams and torn insulation. Furniture sat buried under layers of dust and debris, a faded floral couch, its fabric rotted through, a wooden table covered in water stains and bird droppings from the holes in the roof. Everything was coated in a thick grey film that puffed into the air with every step Maya took. She moved carefully, testing each floorboard before putting her weight on it. Several gave ominous creaks, one cracked under her boot, and she jerked back just in time to avoid her leg plunging through into the crawl space below. The cottage was laid out simply: a front sitting room, and a tiny kitchen with a rusted sink, and a stove that looked like it hadn't worked since the 1970s, and a narrow hallway leading to the back. Maya followed the hallway, and her flashlight beam bouncing off peeling wallpaper covered in faded roses. At the end of the hall was a single door, partially open. She pushed it with her fingertips, and it swung inward with a long, groaning creak. The back room was the most intact space she had seen. It was small, maybe 12 feet by 12 feet, with a stone fireplace built into the far wall. Unlike the rest of the house, the ceiling here was solid. The floor was hardwood, and scuffed and dirty, but unbroken. There was a single wooden chair in the corner, a small table, and a pile of what looked like old blankets folded neatly on a shelf. The air smelled different here, drier, less decay. Almost as if this room had been sealed off from the rest of the house. Maya walked slowly to the fireplace, kneeling down in front of the hearth. The stones were dark grey, fitted together with old mortar that crumbled slightly under her touch. She ran her hand along the right side, just as her grandmother's letter had instructed. Feeling for anything loose. At knee height, her fingers caught on a stone that shifted slightly under pressure. Her breath hitched. She gripped the edges and pulled. The stone resisted for a moment, then slid out with a grinding scrape, revealing a dark hollow space behind it. Maya's heart was hammering now. She aimed her flashlight into the gap. Instead of a small hiding spot, she was looking at a doorway, a narrow opening, maybe 3 feet wide, built directly into the wall behind the fireplace. She pulled out 2 more stones, widening the gap, and shone her light through. Beyond was a space, a hidden room. Maya squeezed through the opening, her jacket catching on the rough stone. The hidden room was larger than she expected, roughly the same size as the room she'd just left. But this one had been deliberately concealed. The walls were smooth plaster, painted white decades ago, but now yellowed with age. And covering those walls, stacked on shelves, stored in flat wooden drawers, and hanging from custom racks, was art paintings, dozens of them. Maya stepped fully into the room, her flashlight sweeping across the space. Most of the paintings were unframed, wrapped carefully in protective cloth. Others were stacked in wooden crates, cushioned with straw. In the corner sat a large wooden easel. Still holding a half-finished canvas, paint tubes, brushes, and palettes were arranged neatly on a workbench. Maya approached the nearest painting, and carefully pulling back the protective cloth. Beneath was a stunning landscape, an explosion of color and movement, depicting a forest in autumn. The style was bold, impressionistic, and the brushstrokes thick and confident. In the bottom right corner was a signature, Iris Delacroix, 1968. Maya's hands started shaking. Her grandmother had been a painter. She moved to the next piece, and unwrapping it carefully, a portrait of a young woman sitting by a window, the light captured so perfectly it seemed to glow. Iris Delacroix, 1971, another. A seascape, waves crashing against rocks, and the water so vivid it looked alive. Iris Delacroix, 1974. Maya pulled back cloth after cloth, revealing piece after piece. There were at least 40 paintings in this room, maybe more, and all of them signed by her grandmother, all of them hidden. Maya sank down onto the dusty floor, her mind racing. Why would her grandmother hide all of this? And why would she let everyone believe she was just a modest woman who lived simply and worked as a seamstress? Maya pulled out her phone, realized there was no signal, and swore softly. She needed to research this. Then she needed to understand what she was looking at. She stood and began photographing every piece, the signatures, the dates, the images themselves. As she worked, she found a small wooden box tucked behind one of the crates. Inside were letters, newspaper clippings, and a journal. Maya opened the journal, her grandmother's handwriting filling the pages. The first entry was dated 1965. I sold my first painting today for $200. The gallery owner said I have potential, but he refused to show my work under my real name. He said a woman's signature devalues the piece, so I will paint in secret. I will build something they cannot take from me. Maya flipped through the pages, her throat tightening. Entry after entry documented rejection. Dismissal galleries that refused to represent a female artist. Then in 1972, a different tone. I have decided to stop trying to sell my work. I will paint for myself. I will store these pieces. And someday, when the world is ready to see a woman's art as valuable, someone will find them. Someone who understands. Maya set the journal down, tears streaming down her face. Her grandmother had been an artist, a real artist, and the world had refused to see her, so she had hidden her entire legacy in a crumbling cottage, waiting. A sudden loud knock on the outer door of the cottage made Maya jump violently. Her flashlight slipped from her hand, clattering onto the floor and going dark. She scrambled to pick it up, her heart racing. Then the knock came again, harder this time. "Maya," a voice called from the front room. "Maya Reeves, are you in here?" The voice was male, unfamiliar, and insistent. Maya squeezed back through the opening in the wall, quickly replacing the loose stones as quietly as she could. She moved down the hallway toward the front room, her flashlight aimed ahead. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the moonlight, was a man in his early 50s wearing a heavy canvas jacket and boots. He held up his hands when he saw her. "I'm not here to hurt you. My name is Thomas Bellamy. I'm a property assessor for the county." Paused. "Your Aunt Lorraine called my office this afternoon and said someone was trespassing in a condemned structure. I came to check it out." Maya's anger flared instantly. "I'm not trespassing. This is my property. I inherited it." Thomas nodded slowly. "I know, I looked up the deed transfer before I drove out here, but your aunt filed a formal complaint. She's claiming the structure is unsafe and you're putting yourself in danger by being here." He met her eyes. "She wants the county to force a demolition." Maya stared at him. "She filed a complaint the same day I inherited it?" Thomas's expression was sympathetic. "Look, I don't know what your family situation is, but yeah, she called within hours of the will being read. She's pushing hard for a teardown permit." He glanced around the ruined room. "And I'm not going to lie to you, this building is in bad shape. If I file my report saying someone is living here in these conditions, the county will red tag it. You'll have 30 days to either make it livable or tear it down." He paused. "If you can't do either, the county seizes it and auctions it to cover the demolition costs." Another pause. "Which, conveniently, your aunt is positioned to buy at auction price." Maya felt the cold dread settling into her chest. The same feeling she'd had signing bankruptcy papers. "They're going to take this from me." Her voice was barely a whisper. "Just like they take everything." Thomas looked at her for a long moment, and then glanced around the ruined front room. "What's really in this place that your aunt wants so badly? She wouldn't push this hard for a piece of worthless land." Maya hesitated. She didn't know this man, but she also didn't have anyone else. And something in his weathered face, in the directness of his gaze, made her want to trust him. "If I show you something, can you keep it off the official record? For now?" Thomas raised an eyebrow. "Depends on what you're showing me." He nodded. "But I'm listening." Maya led Thomas down the narrow hallway to the back room. She knelt by the fireplace and began pulling out the loose stones, widening the opening. Thomas watched in silence, his expression shifting from confusion to genuine surprise as the hidden doorway was revealed. "Maya, what is this? Come on!" Maya squeezed through first, turning on her flashlight. Thomas followed, grunting as his larger frame scraped against the stone opening when he stood up in the hidden room, and Maya illuminated the walls of paintings. He went completely still. His eyes moved slowly across the stacks of canvases, the wrapped pieces, the easel in the corner. He walked to the nearest painting and carefully pulled back the protective cloth, studying the signature. "Holy hell!" Thomas breathed. "Your grandmother was Iris Delacroix." He looked at Maya, his eyes wide. "The Iris Delacroix." Maya blinked. You know that name?" Thomas let out a low whistle. "I have a degree in art history and worked as a curator for 15 years before I burned out and moved to the country to do property assessment." He turned back to the painting. Iris Delacroix showed in exactly 3 galleries in the 1960s under a male pseudonym, because the art world was a boys' club. He paused. When she was finally outed as a woman, the galleries dropped her. She disappeared from the public record entirely around 1973. He shook his head slowly. The art community assumed she'd stopped painting, but she didn't stop. His voice was filled with wonder. She just hid. Thomas moved from piece to piece, his hands careful, reverent. "If these are authentic, and I believe they are, you're looking at a collection worth 7 figures. He turned to Maya. "Maybe more. Mid-century female artists are having a major resurgence right now. There's a whole movement to recover and elevate the women who were erased from art history." He gestured around the room. "A collection like this, fully documented, with this much work?" He shook his head. "Museums would go to war over it." Maya felt her knees go weak. She sat down hard on a wooden crate. "Millions?" Thomas nodded. His expression turned serious. "If your aunt forces a demolition and this building comes down, then there's a real risk this room gets destroyed in the process." He paused. "Or worse, she finds out what's in here and claims it's part of the estate that should have been divided equally among heirs. You need legal protection, and you need it fast." Maya pulled out her phone, staring at the no-surface message. "What do I do? I just filed for bankruptcy. I can't afford a lawyer." Thomas thought for a moment, then pulled out his own phone. "I know someone, an art appraiser in Boston who specializes in estate recovery. She's helped families authenticate and sell collections like this before." He glanced at his screen. "If I can get a signal, I'll call her tonight. But you need to stay here and guard this room until we can get her out here." He met her eyes. "Don't let anyone inside, especially not your aunt." He paused. "I'm going to file my report saying the structure is unsafe for habitation, but that demolition is not recommended due to potential historical significance." He nodded. "That'll buy you 60 days. Use them." Dr. Helen Parrish arrived in a white SUV, carrying camera equipment, authentication tools, and a portable UV light. She was a sharp-eyed woman in her mid-40s who spent 6 hours in the hidden room photographing, measuring, cross-referencing every piece against her databases. When she finally emerged, her face was flushed with excitement. "This is a career-defining find," she told Maya, sitting on the front steps of the ruined cottage. "I've counted 47 completed works and 12 unfinished pieces." She pulled out her tablet. "Based on comparable sales of recovered mid-century female artists, I'm estimating the total auction value between $4.8 and $7 million. She looked up at Maya. Conservatively. Maya couldn't breathe. That's not possible." Dr. Parrish smiled. "It's not only possible, it's happening." She stood. "But we need to move carefully. I've already contacted 3 major auction houses. Sotheby's is very interested." She glanced back at the cottage. "But first, then, we need to get these pieces out of this building and into climate-controlled storage before your family tries something stupid." She wasn't wrong. That afternoon, a truck from Ashford Property Development pulled up to the cottage. Her aunt's company, Lorraine, stepped out, followed by Roger, and 2 men in work uniforms carrying sledgehammers and a chainsaw. Lorraine's face went white when she saw Dr. Parrish's vehicle and the equipment cases stacked on the porch. "What is going on here?" Lorraine demanded, marching toward Maya. "You can't have professionals out here. This building is condemned." Maya stood, her voice calm and cold. "This building is under historical review." She paused. "And you're trespassing." Lorraine's eyes narrowed. "Historical review? For this dump? What are you hiding?" Maya, Dr. Parrish, stepped forward, extending her hand. "Dr. Helen Parrish, art recovery specialist. And you are?" Lorraine ignored the hand. "I'm her aunt. This property should have been divided among the family. And my mother clearly wasn't in her right mind when she made this will." Dr. Parrish pulled a document from her bag. "Actually, your mother was very much in her right mind. I've reviewed her journals, her correspondence, and the deed records." She held up the document. "She paid property taxes on this cottage for 30 years specifically to preserve what's inside." Then she paused. She left it to Maya because Maya was the only person in the family who understood the value of art. Lorraine's face flushed. "What's inside? What are you talking about?" Maya met her aunt's eyes. "Grandma was a painter, Aunt Lorraine." She took a step forward. "A brilliant one, and she hid 47 paintings in this cottage." Maya's voice was steady, strong. "Paintings that are about to sell at auction for $7 million. The collection goes to me." She paused. "All of it." Lorraine's mouth opened and closed like a fish, gasping for air. Roger grabbed her arm. "We're contesting this. We'll sue." Dr. Parrish smiled pleasantly. "You're welcome to try. But the will is airtight. The artwork is documented under Maya's inheritance, and I've already filed the collection with the Art Loss Register." She pulled out her phone. "If you attempt to claim any piece, you'll be flagged for theft." And Lorraine looked at Maya with pure venom. "You don't deserve this. You failed at everything you ever tried." Maya took a step forward, her voice quiet, but powerful. "I failed because I tried." She paused. "You've spent your whole life taking things other people built. Not this time. Now get off my property." Lorraine and Roger left, the truck kicking up gravel as it tore down the dirt road. Maya stood on the porch, shaking. Dr. Parrish put a steady hand on her shoulder. "You did good, kid." 3 months later, the first auction at Sotheby's featured 12 of Iris Delacroix's paintings. The bidding was ferocious. Blocktrix museums. And private buyers from around the world competed. The final sale total for just those 12 pieces was $3.2 million. Maya sat in the auction house, watching the numbers climb, and wept. And 4 years later, Maya stood in the grand opening of the Delacroix Art Foundation, a non-profit dedicated to recovering and promoting the work of erased female artists. The foundation was housed in a beautifully restored building in Burlington, Vermont. The cottage on Blackwell Road had been carefully dismantled, and the hidden room preserved and reconstructed as the centerpiece of the foundation's permanent exhibition. Maya had sold 30 of her grandmother's paintings, keeping 17 for the foundation's collection. The sales had generated $6.4 million after fees and taxes. She had paid off her bankruptcy, bought a small house, and invested the rest into the foundation. She had hired Dr. Parrish as the lead curator, and they had recovered the work of 23 other forgotten female artists in 4 years. Lorraine had sued twice. Both lawsuits were dismissed within weeks. She and Roger no longer spoke to Maya. And Simone had sent a single email asking if Maya would invest in her real estate venture. Maya deleted it without responding. On the wall of Maya's office hung the half-finished canvas from her grandmother's easel, and the last thing Iris had been working on before she stopped painting. Maya had it framed exactly as it was, incomplete, imperfect, real. Some nights when the doubt crept in, and Maya would stand in front of that painting and read the letter her grandmother had left. Build something they said you couldn't, and she had, not from nothing, but from something everyone else thought was worthless. Because the most valuable things are often hidden behind walls, buried in shame, or dismissed as ruins, they wait in the dark for someone brave enough to pull the loose stone and see what's been concealed. And sometimes inheritance isn't about what you're given, it's about what you're willing to fight to uncover. And sometimes the people who mock you the loudest are the ones who fear your success the most. Because they know, deep down, that you were always capable of more than they wanted you to believe.